Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy. We're covering a classic today. This is The Running Man. Ah, stick around. We're going to talk about it. Ah.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Yes! God, this song is so sweet.
This song is so sweet.
Anytime I romantically look at my girlfriend, I just want this to be playing in the background.
Just always have it playing in the back of your mind.
I want to dramatically just like show up in a doorway and have her gaze at me.
You like be going to kiss her and she'll be like, "You're listening to Restless Heart, aren't you?" You're like, "Fuck."
Guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy.
You might wonder why this song is playing.
Oh,
you might not.
You might not if you know your trivia. This is The Running Man on Action Movie Anatomy, Schwarzenegger classic, 1987. In this film, Schwarzenegger plays a helicopter pilot.
He sure does, and he looks the part.
He really does. He looks the part, hey. We talk about action movies on this show. This is Action Movie Anatomy on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies and all things movie-related. And what is this, Schwarzenegger number 6 for us or something like that?
I think so. Let's see. We've done Predator.
T2.
We've done T2.
Predator. Commando.
True Lies.
We got True Lies. I feel like that's all the ones we've done. This might be 5 then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can't think of any other...
There's nothing. We didn't
Arnold.
do T1 yet. That's still on the menu.
That is still on the menu, which we'll probably do one day.
Yeah, I think there's a chance Batman and Robin gets on here as a guilty movie. We'll just like do it someday. There's a chance that Eraser could possibly get done at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I actually like Collateral Damage, even though it's so bad.
When they said that was going to kill you right now.
Right now. Audience, I got you guys up in the live chat for a little bit. I hope you guys are excited about The Running Man. This is the first time I'd actually ever watched The Running Man through, from beginning to end.
Yeah, you've seen bits on cable here and there.
Yeah, always, of course.
Yeah, which is the story with like any movie on the show we haven't seen because they're all movies that play on cable.
Always repetitive.
So guys, we talk about action movies on this show. Those action movies fall into 4 basic categories aside from being made after 1981. And we had a fan who was asking me about a couple movies from pre-81. The most relevant was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I said, 81 has never been a hard and fast rule. So when we made the rules, the 4 rules didn't include the 81 thing. It's just that if you look at the 90 or so movies we've done on the show, they all hit the 81 rule.
They're all after 81.
And it's tough because, I have to say, this movie in particular is a stark reminder. You start to get 30 plus years old in the action genre, and it's really difficult for these movies to hold up visually.
And that's actually going to be part of my thesis statement. So I'll get to that when we get there, but I do completely agree. It's so hard, and the movies that we originally built the show around were the Rambos of the world and all the old 80s action movies, like the old Seagal movies, the Norris movies, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies.
Yeah.
But for some reason...
we found as we've gone that those movies tend to actually be a little less satisfying, and unfortunately, they don't hold up when compared to, we go watch Inception one week, and then we go try to watch, Under Siege the next week. And Under Siege is actually a little better. You go try to watch The Running Man, and it's how are you supposed to watch Inception and then The Running Man and not feel like... I mean, granted, it's a Schwarzenegger movie, so it's supposed to be ridiculous, and it is campy, and that's part of what makes it fun, but it also doesn't really hold together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that nowadays as an audience, we want to have fun, but we also want to have the payoff of, of feeding our intelligence. You know what I mean? And, Inception is a great example of a film that, the whole time you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on while being driven by the action throughout.
Yeah. So what's really hard about a lot of the movies that we've chosen to do, and I don't think this really does include this one because this movie is pretty silly, so there's a lot of really fun campy value. But if you start to get back into those 80s movies and want to do something that took itself a little more seriously, it gets difficult, and you only have a few movies. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's a great example of a movie that would work because it's a classic. You have
Die Hard worked.
Yeah, when you have the great directors doing the great movies, the reason those are classics is just because they stand up. So
exactly,
you look at Cameron doing a movie like Aliens in 1986. That movie still looks amazing.
Yeah, so does T2.
Yeah, they hold up really well. It's just when you get a director, somebody a little bit more in the category of Paul Michael Glaser, and that's why the movie just doesn't really feel as amazing as it should. It feels scampier and sillier. So, with the 81 rule, it's not really official, but the rules we do follow are: number one, the hero always plays by their own rules. Schwarzenegger wouldn't be in a movie if
No,
didn't play
he
by his own
has to play by his own rules.
Yeah, though interestingly enough, one of the critiques I read about this movie was that this is the last movie Schwarzenegger made before he was like truly powerful. And they're saying like you can see in some of the decisions that get made, which is like later Schwarzenegger, like 1991, wouldn't have worn like a yellow ridiculous jumpsuit. He probably would have had like a little bit more control over like what he was in the movie.
Yeah, it would have looked more badass, which was funny because in the beginning of the movie, you and I were just like, is he wearing a World Gym sweater and smoking his... Like, that's just what he wears.
That's
and what
Schwarzenegger.
he does.
And he would have found a way to somehow be in that in...
all throughout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or something. Rule number two, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people in the room. Yeah, I mean, Killian and Schwarzenegger, definitely. That's classic. Three, the movie is driven by a police, military, political, or mercenary figure. He's former military. So yeah, absolutely. And four, the movie contains a minimum of one explosion. Yeah, there's an expensive explosion sequence when they're faking the butcher of Bakerfield's massacre, where they're just like blowing shit up. And
and that was one moment where you and I looked over and were like, that is one cool thing about 80s movies, is this is all actually getting blown up.
Yeah, there's no CGI with that stuff.
It's practical.
So they're like, all right, we've got to cut together this really, really important 25 seconds of the movie. So we're going to spend like a quarter of our budget blowing up this building and blowing up some cars. And like, it's not even going to be particularly well cut together. It's just going to like be...
It's just going to be like a bunch of things happening.
Yeah, insert car blowing up.
It's not like in succession, or you can see that they have effect on each other. It's just like, there's a car, there's a building.
Right, but granted, like, it's supposed to feel that way a little bit because it's an edited video. So obviously, like, it's inserted footage. But even so.
Yeah, it's a great little editing trick they got there.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to follow along with the conversation, if this is the first time listening for you or the first time watching for you, you can follow along with us on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bateman Media. The podcast itself is at AMA Podcast. You guys have been following along and asking questions. We have some AMA questions. Oh, did we even pull an AMA question this week?
I don't know if we did. I might be able to pull one up real quick though.
Cool. And Andrew, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me at Andrew Ghai on Twitter and Instagram. Cool. And here every Wednesday.
Yeah, sweet. Super sick.
Super sweet.
So, guys, let's get into the trailer for The Running Man. We have Marissa Serafini up in the booth doing the producer-engineer thing. What's up, Marissa?
Guys,
How you doing today, Marissa?
I'm excited for you to talk about this film because we actually had PM Glaser in studio last week.
Did you really?
Yes, we did.
What was he in here
I find
for?
It's very apropos. He was here for an interview, but it's just funny, you know, how media works out like that.
Yeah, totally. That's funny.
It's always crazy when you like don't hear someone's name ever or something, or you don't know who someone is, and then like in the next week you hear their name like 5 times.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Always happens.
Yep, so here you go.
Thank you.
The prize is his life.
The prize is his life.
How about the light?
The Running Man.
Wow, is that the whole trailer?
That was
Gonna start that over. Here you go.
Oh, got it. Okay.
In the year 2017, an innocent man accused of a crime has a choice: hard time or prime time.
Sensational. Perfect contestant. I want him.
He must pay or play the Running Man.
On your mark.
I'll be back.
They show him saying, "I'll be back" in the trailer.
yeah, like in a different movie.
Come on, guys. That's his thing at that point.
TV show in history.
Guess they want us to stay.
I guess they want just really in line delivery.
It's a game between life and death.
Dynamo.
Dynamo is hilarious to me. Like everything about him.
Give you a lift.
Need a lift.
Give you a lift.
About your goddamn spine.
The Running
The
Man.
Running Man.
Not a great trailer.
No.
Playing for a prize.
The
The
prize.
prize is his life.
It's his life.
How about the light?
Did they just show him killing Jim Brown in the
Yeah.
trailer?
You can't really
Just
tell
wondering.
that it's Jim Brown, though, in the trailer.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's not hard to tell that Fireball is played by legendary NFL running back Jim Brown. So, guys, that is the trailer for The Running Man. We've talked about this a lot on the show, but 1987, this is a this is like pre-trailers being good. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting about that was that the voice in that trailer, and the prize is his life. It's not the 90s one, but it's also not the Predator voice, which is, and the prize is his
it's
life.
like in between.
Yeah.
It's right in between.
There might have just been 2 guys doing it back then.
Might have just been the same guy. He evolved.
Yeah.
I mean, those trailers back then, I think we really found out that around 2000, like 99 to 2001 is when it really shifted.
Yeah, you started to get a little more innovative, more interesting.
Yeah, like incredibly compelling trailers.
Yeah, but we've talked also about the fact that I think that the mid-90s to late 90s ones, in a lot of ways, are better than the ones in that in-between. It's like 05, 06 is when they start to really get good.
Yeah, those are like the ones that you feel like is like watching an award-winning movie.
Yeah, right.
But then ones in the 90s would get you stoked.
Yeah, Congo, Snake Eyes, 2 of my favorites.
Incredible bounty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Congo's is great.
You guys chose this, by the way, The Running
You did.
Man.
You
I put
guys
up a
did.
poll of my 3 guilty movie pleasures that I wanted to see if you guys chose. One of which was Miami Vice, the Michael Mann 2006 film that I am the only fan alive of.
Yeah, I really didn't think that one was going to win.
The second one was Snake Eyes, the Cage movie.
I
which
really thought that was going to win. I don't know why, because it's really
I
bad.
think it got the least votes.
I'm sure it did.
You know, one thing I read
Two
about
of them are
Snake Eyes
mine.
the other day was that you know, it's De Palma, which is like, you know how
Your
much I hate De
favorite,
Palma.
yeah.
But like De Palma obviously is like a legendary director.
Yeah, I
and
watched
he's-
Scarface again yesterday 2 days ago from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and I know how you feel about that film.
Yeah.
I actually liked it more this time than I have in the past.
Yeah, he's a very compelling character.
Yeah.
And there's a couple good scenes, but overall it's just 280s for my taste. I just like it's just like not watchable most of it. But there's like a 10 or 12 minute single tracking shot in Snake Eyes to open the movie.
Yeah.
That's how the movie
The
opens.
walkthrough, right?
Yeah, and it's like insanely long. Like it's like maybe it's not 12 minutes, but it's like
It's very long.
legendarily long and totally gratuitous, but it's just funny that it's in the movie Snake Eyes.
And it's one of those things where exactly. It's one of those things like that is so hard to pull off. There's
So hard.
so much choreographing that needs to go into that. And Brian De Palma needed to do it in Snake Eyes.
In Snake Eyes.
every film has a great moment. That was Snake Eyes.
I'm Ricky Santoro. I'm Ricky Santoro. I'm Ricky, and I am the king.
Phantom Punch.
We're gonna do Snake Eyes someday.
Why not?
So, guys, we're gonna get into the next part of the show. This is Thesis Statement. If you guys watch or listen to the show, you know this is your big, bold statement. The thing, your strongest feeling about the movie should be rooted either in fact or hyperbole, or just be like, you know, like it should be like a strong idea.
This is Arnold's greatest film ever.
Even if it's your opinion, which often that's what this is,
Yeah.
it should be the strongest opinion. So if somebody maybe somebody has an enormous argument with your opinion, that's fine as long as it's strong. So I'm just going to go outright and say it.
Okay.
Best part of this entire movie, Restless Heart by John Parr. The song to close the film. The soundtrack song. The theme song of the movie, Restless Heart, is the best part of this entire movie.
Like, hold on. Hold on a second. Let me just gather this really quick for our fans, especially the new viewers out there. They're talking about Thesis, this bold thesis statement.
Yeah.
Yours is that the best part of this film is Restless Heart
By John Parr.
by John Parr.
The soundtrack song. It's the most...
I mean, you know, I can't argue with you because it's your opinion.
it's enduring. It's like, I
mean,
feel
it's
like
a good song.
It's fantastic.
Okay, so here's my
Restless
question.
Heart.
What if you're watching this on cable, and you know how it is on cable, where as soon as the credits come up, it gets boxed down in the small bottom of the screen. They play the trailer for the next film. So what do you're just like, I don't
Then
have
the
it.
idiots that were
Then
putting
my
this on
thesis
cable.
is that people do not know how to run cable.
That's pretty much, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think this is such a good soundtrack song. It caught me immediately. Immediately.
How bad do you want this in the Rocky 2 soundtrack?
Rocky 2?
Yeah, I mean Rocky 4 soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. If this was
would
on the Rocky...
complete it.
I mean, that's already the greatest soundtrack.
It is.
Yeah, it's already the greatest soundtrack. But, like...
It is.
Yeah. I mean, you know how I feel about Swedish Victory? Which is like...
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
That's my thesis statement. I mean, there's some great moments in this movie. Schwarzenegger has some phenomenal lines. Richard Dawson's great, but
yeah.
I think Restless Heart is the greatest single part of The Running Man. That is my thesis statement.
Okay,
Come
well,
at me.
Well, Jeffrey Peters has something to say, which said John Parr also made the St. Elmo's Fire soundtrack.
I know.
In case you need to go get that real quick.
I listened to it yesterday.
Nope, I already bought it. And then Can Your Dome has a thesis statement saying that Running Man's game show is the greatest concept for future television ever put to film. That is fucking great. That is a very good thesis statement. The reason I say this is because you and I had about a 10-minute conversation while watching the film yesterday about how innovative this movie really was. There wasn't reality TV. There weren't all these competition games. I mean, The Running Man could be on TV now, essentially, other than the murder, obviously.
There's been a lot of attempts over the years to make a concept like this.
American Gladiator is probably the most famous one.
It's based on this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of concepts that have come from an idea like this. Now, as we've gotten further and further and further in culture, and there's more and more things like Battle Royale and like the Hunger Games and like EdTV and the Truman Show and actual reality TV, it's now just a very comfortable idea.
Yeah.
But back in 1987, this was not something we had seen a lot of on TV.
No, this was like a very new idea, and even though it is 30 years later, when watching it, you still appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was something that was cool. So my thesis statement to this, and it's going to sound a little sloppy because I was having a hard time putting it together, but essentially I'm saying action as a genre is the most difficult, most evolving genre of film out there. When I say difficult, I mean difficult to make and keep with the times.
Yeah.
If you were to make a great action film in the 80s, it is so fucking hard to make one in 2017.
Yeah.
It's also hard to make a great action film in the 80s that holds up in 2017.
Yep.
It's also hard to make great action movies now that get the respect or ever to win like Best Picture, Best Actor.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. And all the ones that do win Best Picture, Gladiator, all, The Lord of the Rings, those aren't straight action movies. They're action dramas or action fantasies or things like that. So my thesis is that action, and you and I are going to write the greatest action script of all time, because we've done this show, action is the hardest genre of film to make, period. It's harder than drama, it's harder than comedy, it's harder than anything else out there, horror, because if you look back, how many great comedies, horrors, dramas are there in every decade? There's so many of them.
And they hold up.
And they hold up.
Yeah.
How many great action movies that you could show a 10-year-old and a 60-year-old that came out in the 70s and 80s where they would be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Like the Star Wars movies. Again, these are not pure action movies.
Right.
Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones is the closest.
Yeah.
But like Terminator 2, Aliens, these aren't just action movies.
No.
So I think that action as a genre is the most difficult ever evolving genre out there to make.
And you think The Running Man proves that?
And I think The Running Man proves that because this film in 87, I mean, Simon Pope, we didn't get a lot of AMA questions, but Simon Pope did ask, is this the most underrated Arnie movie of the 80s? No.
What's more underrated
Than this? I mean,
I feel like Terminator's not underrated because it's like that's a classic.
Yeah,
and I feel like Predator's not underrated because it's a classic.
Is this better or worse than Commando?
I think it's better than Commando. I mean, that's hard to say. I mean,
it's really hard to say.
If you look at Schwarzenegger's like classic properties, like
and then what are the Conan movies in the 70s?
Those are 80s.
Those are early 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's an entire like genre of Schwarzenegger's career that he's looked to recreate and make sequels to because he's made. Terminator Genesis, he's going to be in the next 2 Terminator movies. He's got Triplets, the sequel to Twins that's going to come out eventually. He's got a reboot of Predator that he's going to probably show up in. He's got another Conan movie that he wants to show up in. Like, he's trying to reboot all these old franchises. The one that doesn't ever seem to get talked about that's a hit is this one.
Yeah.
So it's this or it's Commando, I guess.
Well, I mean, maybe this is underrated just because it didn't get released worldwide. It kind of got swept under the rug right away. It didn't make a lot of money.
No, it was like 30th or 40th, I think, on the year in 87 domestically. It's like, I mean, yeah, the answer to the question might be that this is the most underrated. Commando gets referenced and parodied far more. I mean, Commando gets brought up a lot more than this movie does.
That's true.
So this movie does feel like it's the hit that doesn't really get its due.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for some reason, I guess when I initially said that, I was thinking about the classics, but those aren't underrated. Those are considered the greatest. So, yeah, I guess Running Man or Commando. I feel like Commando is talked about more, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to read a couple things here that the audience has to say. The saying by Can Your Dome says the other type I'd say might be harder is musical, which is true. I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, La La Land proved that you can make one of the best musicals that's ever been ever made, and you still have half the world hating it because it's not musical enough. And then people like you and I loved it because it was just the right type of musical for us.
Yeah, I think musical, the one argument I would have against that point is that musicals are enduring because of the music. So because, like, if you love the songs and you grew up watching the songs or listening to the songs, then 30 years later, it's still going to resonate with you because music is that way. That when you hear something familiar that you loved at one time, you're going to immediately click right back into it.
Right. Super nostalgic.
It's why, I mean, that's why music is even used to, like, treat Alzheimer's patients. It's, like, one of the few things that in your memory bank can, like, really trigger some kind of familiarity and bring you back to the present moment.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I would say musicals are a little more enduring and easier to make enduring musicals. I think your point about action movies is pretty sound. It's exactly what we're talking about. You go back and look at the biggest problems with a lot of our 80s action movies that we've covered, and it's mostly the actual action.
Yeah.
It's the actual action scenes are the things that have aged the most poorly.
Exactly. And to hop on that, in the 80s, it was more about the action scenes and not about the ones in between, which is what we find is our favorite things about the 90s and 2000s. I want to say this real quick. Ingo Film Freak, it's okay that you're late. We're glad that you're here. Yes, action is a complicated genre. Plus, if an actor sucks in an action film, it can hurt his career more than a flop in any other genre. Which is interesting because in action, it is so standalone. It's all on your shoulders that when you make a bad action movie, it can plummet your career. Whereas if you're in a drama, and it's a bad drama, it's like, it's the script, it's the director, it's the editing, it's like all these other outlying factors, whereas action is just like, it's him.
Yeah, was he good or not? Kind of thing. Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting point as well. Cool. Thanks for keeping along the chat, guys.
Yeah, awesome. So let's move on to the next segment of the show. This is going to be a fist bump moment. This is that moment in the movie, something happens, you're looking around, you're like, are you seeing this right now? This is so fucking awesome. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You get so pumped, you want your buddy to watch it with you right then.
Yeah, or if you're like watching it, you like look over to make sure that they're like watching during this moment. You're like, so watch, put your phone.
Yeah. So again, for me, look, the easy one is Restless Heart, but
I think we all know where this is going to go.
Why don't you start us out?
My fist pump moment, again, I had a hard time finding one in this film.
Yeah.
But it's when he kills Buzzsaw.
Yeah.
It's fucking gnarly.
Through the nuts.
With the chainsaw, and he like picks him up, and it was just one of those things that that was super 80s.
Yeah.
He's got the line delivery, the gratuitous gore, and that was one of those moments where I was like, this is what this movie is all about, is this. And I saw that and it happened, I was just like, oh god, he's got to do it. He's got, yes! And yeah, that was it.
I think mine's got to be that moment we were talking about when he's sitting there in the World Gym smoking a cigar shirt. He's like, you're like, he's like gotten out of prison and he's sitting there wearing a World Gym shirt smoking a cigar, and you're like, first of all, of course you got a cigar. Like, you got a cigar.
That's the first thing I was like, where did you get that?
As fast as possible. He's got the World Gym shirt on. Like, he probably just came straight from the workout. And he's like, I want to wear this in the scene.
I want to wear this for this scene. It will help.
It will help. It will help bring us into the reality of the scene. And, like, it's just fucking-tastic. Like, it's just Schwarzenegger in it. Everything else about the movie is like super futuristic and like
it's just him,
weird style, but it's like Schwarzenegger's just like wearing the World Gym shirt with a cigar in that scene.
It's like the equivalent of him walking onto set, like the set for the wrong movie, and just sitting down to be like, well, I'll just do it.
Yeah, that's got to be my fist pump moment. I mean, that's
a good moment.
That and like definitely specifically with Restless Heart when the chick, the female lead whose name I don't have written down in front of me, the girl who was also in Predator 2. Mm-hmm. She like walks up and she like stands and turns and looks at him, and then Restless Heart starts playing, and then the one line is like, and I found a friend, and you're like, yeah, you have Schwarzenegger. All right.
Fist bump. That was the most engaged you were in the whole movie.
Restless Heart?
Yeah.
I just thought it was fantastic. I don't know. You guys, come at me if you think it's the worst thing ever.
Honestly, no one has said anything negative about you loving Restless Heart.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would.
Can Your Dome Again, which I don't think I've ever seen you in the chat before, man. You're blowing it up. I love it. I'm stoked. He says the people in the streets in the dystopian future betting on the game show is his fist pump moment. It says it totally hyped me up that the whole world watches this show.
Oh, my other fist pump moment's that guy in the audience. Every time they would cut to the audience,
or the bearded guy,
that shitweasel looking guy with like the mustache and like the gray like checkered kind of looking jacket, and he's always cheering and he's like such a cartoon character.
They cut to him so much that you were like, do you see that guy? I'm like, you mean the guy with the mustache? You're like, yes.
Also when they cut to Jim Brown and his shirt is now open,
somehow you're just like, are you what are you doing?
In like the viewing party, like Jim Brown's like shirt is open. You're like, what's going on?
It's an 80s Coke party,
It's
man.
like an 80s Coke party, and then they're like, report to set. And you're like, oh,
That's why they keep showing Jim Brown.
you can do whatever you want, Jim Brown. So anyway, moving on, guys. Let's talk about career profiles, where these guys were in their careers, and we're going to start with Richard Dawson because we have a little Schwarzenegger game we're going to play right after. So Richard Dawson, this is just really interesting. As a trivia question, like Richard Dawson was a real TV host. He's really not, at this point in his career, an actor at all. He was in Hogan's Heroes from 1965 to 1971.
Dude, the host of Family Feud from 76 to 85. That's what it was. I was like, I know this guy from something.
Totally. He was the host of Family Feud for a decade. He was a panelist on Match Game. Like, he was a TV guy for years. Like, all kinds of television. He was just one of the most famous hosts of like the entire 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
And you know what, guys? I'm just going to throw this in again with like thesis statement. Ben and I totally agree that Dawson is the strongest actor in this film. He's the most compelling character of the film. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, there's later when we get to it, but you know, Ebert has a quote, Roger Ebert, that he wrote: "The movie's problem is that all the action scenes are versions of the same scenario." Oh, that's not the one I wanted to quote.
Nope, it's the one on the next page.
It's the one on the next page, actually, and it was TV Guide. It says only Richard Dawson, brilliantly cast, redeems this mess with a superior performance, and that is true.
It really is. He's really good, and okay, this is great because I always talk about how every great action movie needs a great villain. Now, that doesn't mean the villain has to be like a macho guy that's going to go, hand-to-hand combat or like firefight with him at the end. This guy is so evil, but he's not over-the-top fake evil. He's just evil enough throughout it to where you're like, that's a real person.
Yeah, right.
Like, the very beginning, you know he's going to fire that janitor.
Of course.
You know he is, but the way that he does it is not it's not like in his face. It's not like, it's just the way he would.
He doesn't push him down.
Nothing. He's like nice to him. He's like, you're gonna get fucking fired in about 5 minutes, and I'm never gonna see you again.
Yeah, right.
It's that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I just love that. So anyway, I think that he was an amazing villain.
He's like this movie's Howard Saint for you.
He is.
Howard Saint, I feel like, would be on
Howard Saint.
If we were still ranking heroes and villains, I feel like Howard Saint would end up in your top 10.
Top 10.
You love Howard Saint.
Absolutely love Howard Saint. Made you kill your wife. Made you kill your best friend.
So yeah, Hogan's Heroes, he's an actor that he plays on Match Game and host of Family Feud. That's pretty much Richard Dawson. There's not that much else to say about Richard Dawson, unfortunately. I mean, there would be, I think, if we were profiling his life, but he doesn't have credits for us to talk about where he was in his career. This is the last movie he ever appeared in. It's just a random casting choice to put him in this movie,
which is also surprising that it's the last film because he did such a great job.
Yeah, but I think it was one of those things where they were like, we've got the guy who they were probably like, okay, we've got the guy from Terminator and this really interesting script about a futuristic game show where people fight to the death, and you're like the most famous game show host in the last 20 years or one of them.
Right.
So why don't you play the role? It seems really interesting for you. And he's probably just like, you know what I mean? How Oprah occasionally would like act nowadays.
Yeah, she should just drop into something real quick. And
yeah, I mean, if like think about the biggest hosts out there. If they put Conan O'Brien as like the role in some movie starring like Amy Schumer, like if Conan O'Brien had just like been in Trainwreck, you'd be like, all right,
that makes sense.
Yeah, you're like, he hasn't really been in a movie in a long time, but sure, why not?
Yeah, it's not like I expect his acting career to take off after that.
No, it's just like a role, and I think it's just kind of one of those interesting things. Once you have a platform.
All right, guys, this chat is awesome today. So we've got a bunch of fist pumps here. Hey, Killian, here's a Sub-Zero. No, just plain zero. That was great. That line is so bad that it's good. Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, Sub-Zero. Now, just plain zero.
Fist pump. There's nothing funny about a dickless moron with a battery up his ass. That's just a great line.
That's like her whole moment right there.
John Alexander says when Richards refuses the contract, as he quoted earlier.
Yes,
that's a good one.
That's like the best line in the movie.
Canyon Dome says the second best casting is the old woman in the audience who bets on Richards.
Yeah.
Yes. That is so. The audience?
Yeah.
You were like, what is with all these old people that just have a death wish?
Yeah, it's like they really wanted to make a point that little old women wanted to watch people die. It was like they beat us over the head with it a number of times.
Yeah, old white people love watching people die.
Yeah.
In this movie.
So moving on to Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
His three films surrounding this are Predator in '87, which is my favorite Schwarzenegger movie of all time. Though I also love T2, but those are the two for me. Raw Deal in 1986, and Commando in 85. We've done Commando on the show, we've done Predator on the show, and Raw Deal, if I remember correctly, is like Schwarzenegger is like a tough Chicago cop or something like that. And he has to like hunt someone down. Maybe he goes undercover or something. I get it mixed up with Red Heat that came out in 88. But I know that Red Heat's the one with Jim Belushi, and Raw Deal is something. He's the only main star in Raw Deal. He's a cop, I'm pretty sure.
I'm trying to remember, but I don't remember anything about it.
But that's pretty much where he's at in his career. So as that article I was reading was saying, like 87's like the last year before Schwarzenegger really becomes massively powerful, because then at that point, following this, it's like Red Heat comes out in 88, and like the next couple years are like, all right, I'm putting together Terminator 2, which is going to be, you know, the biggest movie I ever do.
Yeah. And
I'm also kind of getting into like Twins, and I'm starting to move into comedy. I'm a little bit more of like approachable, like I can do things that are funny, families like me. He got away a little bit from the like one-man army killing everyone roles.
Yeah, which is weird, because then his career just kind of, I don't want to say it petered out, but it kind of did. Like I think what happened was, he was this one-man army, Mr. Olympia, like the most amazing physique in the world for so long, and then he kind of made this transition. He still looks, I mean, he doesn't look like he should be in any of those films, but he's Arnold.
Yeah.
But then it's like, after that little run, then what?
Yeah, well,
you know,
I mean,
you can't go back to a one-man army, but he kind of does in the 90s.
He tries to. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the three movies that really like define the 90s for Schwarzenegger in terms of like his power run, it's definitely Terminator 2, True Lies, and Batman and Robin, because it's I mean, obviously a Batman movie is a big deal, so that's a huge thing that he's in, and obviously True Lies was enormous in another Cameron movie, and T2 made all this money, so those are the hits, and that's just like in that little stretch, but that's where he's really at the peak of his powers. So guys, we're gonna get into a little game we like to play. Now, back in the day,
we're talking 2-3 years ago,
5 years ago, probably
5 years ago now. Holy shit.
Yeah, back in the day when Andrew and I like first met, started hanging out, we would play this game where we would name an actor, and we would go back and forth naming one movie that actor had been in until one of us got stumped.
Yeah, and it was like infuriating, because you'd be busy at work, and you'd come around the corner, and if it was Tom Cruise, you'd be like, Collateral, and you'd be like, fuck. Yeah. God, I was gonna use Collateral. God damn it, I got so many tables. Like, it would make me so mad.
So yeah, this is what we used to do all the time, and we were thinking that today, because Schwarzenegger hasn't been in that many movies, we're gonna play kind of an abbreviated version. That game you're allowed to take as long as like 30 minutes.
As long as you want.
Yeah, because you sometimes when it gets to the later rounds, you really have to think. We're gonna play a quick version here. We're just gonna go back and forth with a 10-second clock.
And really quickly, I do want to say that Ben and I, we played this game, and I don't know who won more or less, but there was one tie. There was one draw.
Ever?
And it was because we listed every single Tom Cruise movie.
Ever.
That was of course.
Yeah.
Of course we did.
At that point,
and that was even before I was obsessed, but what would happen was I would throw back some of the ones that you would think I didn't know from like the early or the late 80s and early 90s, and you would use the ones that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah,
so we'd work it through the whole catalog. It was pretty awesome.
That was back when he had done like 38 or 39 movies or something, and we were like, and we're talking perfect, like, get the Austin Powers cameo.
Yes.
You know, like
everything.
All the, you know, taps, like Endless Love, the whole thing. So anyway, let's get into our Schwarzenegger round. If you guys want to.
Your money's on Ben. Fuck you.
Yeah. Also, guys, just for the record, it's been announced now, and it's been since we were on the show last week. Right?
Yeah, I don't think we've said it yet. We got a big day coming up.
We're going on the Schmodown.
Yes, we
Andrew and I are going on, and on March 14th, you're going to watch us compete against Joelle Monique and Emma Fife.
Yes.
And we're going on to represent Popcorn Talk, to represent Action Movie Anatomy. We're going to be doing, the Schmodown. So we're going to do trivia, the whole thing. We're so excited. We love trivia, and let's get to this game.
Yeah, but real quick about the Schmodown. So you guys are our audience. You're our fans. You're the people that love us the most out there. You guys know us better than anyone else as well. Ben and I are having a bit of an identity crisis, trying to figure out what like gimmick or what characters we want to bring to Schmodown. We obviously want to be in suits or dress nice, but we can't just be the guys in suits. Like, that's so boring. Yeah. So at AMA Podcast, or at either of us, Ben Bateman Media or Andrew Ghai on Twitter, let us know, fans, since you've been watching us for 2 years almost, let us know what you think our best, like, gimmick or, you know, something should be, our what we should embody on that show, because We are so excited.
Yeah, we love trivia and we want to have a good show and we want to do it. So let's get into our Schwarzenegger trivia game. We have Marissa Serafini up in the booth. She's gonna be keeping track. We will only be counting down if it takes longer than 5 or so seconds. There's a 10-second clock per pick. Andrew, would you like to go first?
Sure. We're not going to do Prodder, Red Deal, or Commando because blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go with Terminator 2.
I'm going to go T1.
Okay. I'm going to go The End of Days.
I'm going to go Sixth Day.
That's funny. That's the next one. I'm going to go Collateral Damage.
Oh, shit.
We're going fast now.
I'm going to go with Red Heat.
Okay. I'm going to go with Batman and Robin.
I'm going to go with Last Action Hero.
Okay. I'm going to go Twins.
I'm going to go True Lies.
Junior.
I'm going to go with Around the World in 80 Days. That was a stretch.
That was a good one. That's a good one. Kindergarten Cop.
Okay. I'm going to go with Hercules, New York.
I'm going to go with Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the Destroyer.
Fuck. I always hate when you use that. All right. Let's do...
5, 4, 3, 2.
Did I do End of
1.
Days?
Yep.
I don't know.
You just lost.
I just lost.
How did you lose so fast?
I got excited, man.
Oh man, you forgot so many. I can just start listing them.
I know.
But
There's
I'm not
so
going
many.
to because I already beat you.
You did. You did.
Yeah. Do you feel stupid?
I do. I feel a little stupid.
Yeah, it's hard. We never did it on a timer like that.
No.
Yeah.
Last Action Hero.
I said it already.
Fuck.
Yeah. yeah. I mean, I guess you said Collateral Damage, right?
I did.
Yeah. So the ones in the 2000s, I mean, we would sort of get into like Sabotage.
Yeah, Expendables.
Yeah, all the Expendables movies. There's a lot.
Maggie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There were more.
We missed a lot of movies. It's okay though because I won. So let's
It is
continue
okay.
moving
It
down
is
the show.
okay. He won. He also decided to play this game 30 seconds before the show started, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move on to production development, asshole.
All right, guys, this is written by the same guy that wrote Die Hard. Andrew's off the show. Stephen E. DeSouza, based on a Richard Bachman novel. Richard Bachman is the pen name
For Stephen King.
for Stephen King. And interestingly enough, Rob Cohen, the executive producer on the movie, purchased the rights to the Richard Bachman novella, The Running Man. He did not know that actually Bachman was Stephen King when he bought the rights. People making fun of you right now?
In the rules of The Running Man, Bedna has to kill Andrew on air.
So DeSouza is a super successful writer.
Yeah.
Tons and tons and tons of stuff. Now, he did direct Street Fighter in 1994.
Phenomenal film, Jean-Claude.
Yep. And but
He said action, Jean-Claude.
he said action, Jean-Claude. He production development, directing. He wrote Commando, Die Hard, 48 Hours, Flintstones, and Hudson Hawk. Hudson Hawk is that Bruce Willis 91 movie that's like run. I think he won the Razzie for
Yeah,
that.
it's renowned as one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah, people don't like Hudson Hawk. But that's Stephen D. DeSouza. He's made like tons and tons and tons of money off of his scripts. Here you go. Films have earned over $2 billion at the worldwide box office. So this guy is a hit maker.
And I don't know if you guys watched our John Wick episode last week, John Wick 2, which you should do. It's a very good episode. We had Brant Pinvidic on there, a friend of ours. This is the kind of stuff that he was talking about.
Yeah.
This is how you know whether you're a success, whether you're a legend, is you talk numbers. Brant's a producer, director, but $2 billion. Yep. $2 billion is an insane amount of money for one writer to produce.
Quotable numbers, man.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to.
Exactly.
So that's Stephen DeSouza. Then you have the director, Paul Michael Glaser, who Marissa told us actually was just in studio. That's pretty cool.
That's so cool. I wish we would have known. We could have maybe bothered him about coming on for this.
This would have been fun, yeah. That would have been hilarious. Yeah, so Paul Michael Glaser, it's a bizarre career, and this is one of the things I found the most interesting when researching this. So he's David Starsky in Starsky and Hutch on the TV show. That's a thing. And then he directed some episodes of Starsky and Hutch, and The Running Man is his breakout directorial movie. I think he had directed something before it, but this is like the movie that he's known for.
After this, he got the green light to do anything.
Yeah, most notably, he directed The Cutting Edge in 1992, The Air Up There, the movie from 94 with Kevin Bacon about basketball. And isn't he playing basketball with like an Ethiopian dude who's like 7 feet tall?
Wait, what is this?
Remember that movie, The Air Up There with Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never watched it.
Yeah, but I remember the cover. and that's directed by him. And then following that, he directed Kazam in '96, the Shaq movie.
I turned that on TV the other day.
Yeah,
I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
But
Shaq is a phenomenal actor.
sure is.
So that's Paul Michael Glaser. Now, here's the thing I found most interesting. So Schwarzenegger, in his autobiography, complained that he didn't like Glaser's work on this film. He felt that it was too TV-esque because he didn't have any experience, which he didn't have any experience doing movies like this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Glaser was the 5th director installed to work on this movie, and the 4th director, Andrew Davis, who I believe is the director of The Fugitive, unless I'm mistaken, and Long Kiss Goodnight, and something else we've done
think
here.
you're correct
maybe
on that.
Maybe Under Siege. I might have just. I'm not sure.
I don't think he's Under Siege, but I think the other two sound right. My phone's dead.
Yeah. Andrew Davis got fired as the 4th director on this movie 8 days into shooting because he was already $8 million over budget.
And 4 days behind. How do you do that?
So Cohen let Davis go and ultimately hired Glaser, who he had worked with on the first season of Miami Vice. Again, the colors and the 80s-ness of this movie.
It's perfect that Starsky and Hutch and Miami Vice are basically these jumping off points.
So it's kind of fascinating, and ultimately this ended up being the most memorable good movie that he ever did.
Let's not just go throwing words around.
Kazam. But that's the story with Paul Michael Glaser. So
I mean, you look at this movie and it kind of makes sense.
yeah,
All the way across the board, why these guys. I mean, DeSouza doesn't really make a lot of sense, but like Glaser.
yeah.
What is he going to make after this? Like, after watching The Running Man, what is he going to make that you're going to be like, yeah, this guy really knows what he's doing?
I think probably the opportunity was there because this movie was pretty successful and it had Schwarzenegger. A lot of people saw it, but yeah, he didn't exactly stun people with his next films. So in any case, there's some crazy stuff if you read his biography and what actually happened in his life. He was part of some pretty tragic stuff with Family Matters that we won't really get into on here, but definitely a tough run. And I mean, he made a movie that we are talking about on the show that
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed.
This movie is loved by millions.
Yeah, so we always talk about that. You have to consider yourself a massive success if you did even one piece of art that the world remembers and talks about.
Yeah, and I mean, almost every single movie in our entire catalog that we've covered is almost an action movie classic. I'd say there's maybe like a handful of them that aren't.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the Tony Scotts, unfortunately.
The Mechanic would be the one that would jump out.
The Mechanic and the Independence Day Resurgence.
Yeah, those are some
Jurassic World.
Some tough ones.
Yeah.
People love Jurassic World, and it's relevant because it made so much money.
I actually like it much more now that...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think it's anywhere near Jurassic Park.
Did you watch it again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's okay.
Interesting. All right, moving on to
why would you do
next point in the show. This movie is produced by George Linder and Tim Zinnemann. They're the 2 credited producers. There's also 2 EPs, one of which is Rob Cohen. But this is really interesting, too. Linder and Zinnemann, despite working with Schwarzenegger in 87, like right around the time that he is peaking into that, they're not really notable producers. Like, Linder has 5 credits as a producer, and none of them are like very memorable credits. Zinnemann was involved as a producer on a bunch of movies. Like, it looked like he had maybe like 18 credits, but overall, Pet Sematary, the Stephen King movie from '89, and then Street Fighter and The Island of Dr. Moreau were like the most memorable, notable movies in the whole catalog, other than The Running Man. That's crazy. How does a movie like this get made with this kind of budget? All the dancing was choreographed by Paula Abdul. You have like big actors. I mean, Richard Dawson was a really big name. Schwarzenegger was a really big name. Jim Brown's at the time.
Yeah, that was just like throwing any professional athlete like OJ, Kareem, throwing them in films.
Yeah, I mean, he's as big as it gets at the time.
Yeah, it's weird. It is really weird, like, why this movie just kind of missed, even though, I mean, so we'll move on here. We'll talk in critical and box office. This was released by TriStar November 13th, 1987. It cost $27 million to make, and it grossed a total of $38 million domestic. It was not released worldwide, so $38 million is what it made back. Covering its budget, obviously, and it was number 1 at $8 million its opening weekend. Man, numbers sure have changed, haven't they?
Jeez. $8 million.
Opening weekend. Number 3 is usually in the high teens, low 20s.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And a competitive weekend. So critically, this movie got a 6.6 by IMDb, which seems right.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes gives it all top in audience respectively 62%, 33, and 60, which misses our little equation that we usually do. The audience score is usually the highest,
which blows my mind on this one. But I think what we've seen this a little bit with the older movies on Tomatoes. There's a limited number of reviews, and usually they're written from a long time ago. So I don't think that those are as reflective as the IMDb score, which continues to get updated.
Yeah, the audience and the IMDb are usually the most. Those are always updated.
Yeah.
So you already read the Roger Ebert quote and the TV Guide quote. So should we get a top 5 going?
Yeah, let's get into top 5. This is a good one, guys. We started talking about post-apocalyptic movies. Now, this movie is a post-apocalyptic movie, definitely. Not one of my top 5 post-apocalyptic movies of all time.
No, me neither.
But there's some pretty fan-freaking-tastic post-apocalyptic movies about like the end of the world and what's happened. So we're gonna each list our top 5. Did you rank yours, or did you just come up with 5?
I just came up with 5, but I'm forgetting my last 2. Maybe you got them.
I'm not sure if I even bothered. I didn't bother ranking, but I'm looking at this and I'm feeling like I probably could rank. I feel like I could go 1 there. I could go 2 there. God, these movies are so good.
They're all so good. I'm missing a big one right now. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my list. So I'm going to start with number 5.
Okay.
I'm going to start with number 5, and this is going to be Pixar's WALL-E.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about WALL-E.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
The world has gone to hell. It's definitely a post-apocalyptic movie. That movie's so good.
WALL-E is incredible.
Like WALL-E, the thing about WALL-E that years will pass and people will remember the string of Pixar hits, and the thing about WALL-E people will not remember that is so unbelievable. That's a children's movie that's a silent movie for the first 50 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
There's no words. He just says WALL-E. It doesn't turn into an actual like talkie until almost like when Will Smith shows up in Independence Day.
Yeah, and it's like that movie, I remember when it came out, it was all the adults were raving about how it was such an incredible sociological depiction of our time, and it's a brilliant film.
I mean, Pixar is like almost like still underrated in a lot of ways.
I know and you can't really even argue that because they win Best Picture every single year for Best Animated Feature, but they still have made the best. I mean, honestly, if you really talk about it, they've made the best movies for the last 20 years.
Consistently?
The best.
Yeah, we just had this conversation about that trivia stat, which is that The Good Dinosaur is the only Pixar flop ever made. The only one financially that was like actually just people just didn't see.
But then you look at the rest of them. There's like how many movies are in the are literally at 100.
They're all
there's like there's a few of them that are 100%, and the rest of them are all in the high 90s. They're all winning awards.
I thought you were going to talk about they're all considered blockbusters because they all make $100 million
too. Yeah, it's because every family knows that like the parents are going to cry. It's going to be amazing. The kids are going to love it.
Unbelievable. That's my number 5.
That's a good one. So I'm going to jump in with, man, I'm so bummed. I can't remember the other ones I had written down. So I'll do Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
Love that movie. It's one of my favorite zombie movies. It's like not terrifying. It's a little fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go number 4 with 28 Days Later.
Yep, that's probably like my number 2 or something. I love 28 Days Later.
I love 28 Days Later. I think that movie's fantastic. It really kind of revolutionized the modern zombie.
Yes.
The modern zombie movie. It's the first time we had ever in a major movie had fast zombies.
Yes.
Which were freaking terrifying. I think I've said this a bunch of times before, and we disagree on this, but I think that the end of that movie loses me when it turns into kind of this slasher thing. It's the same thing Sunshine does, the same thing Beach does. They're all written by the same guy, which is phenomenal. It's like
Danny Boyle's,
It's hilarious that all 3 movies have the same writer, and they all have kind of the same switch that flips in the last 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, which for some people... So for me, 28 Days Later is the only one that it works in.
Yeah.
Sunshine, it does lose me a little bit. And I love Sunshine.
Love Sunshine.
Okay, so 28 Days Later is one of mine as well. So then I'm going to say The Road. I love The Road.
The Road's so dark.
It is so dark. It is so depressing. But Viggo is incredible in it, and it's heartbreaking.
I love The Road. I've never had the impulse to want to watch the movie again.
I could see that.
So I have stayed away from it, and but I have seen the one time I watched it. Like there's certain scenes that are like etched into your memory. Like when they open the cellar and they see all the people down there, all the naked people who are gonna be eaten, and then they hear the screams from a distance. And
God, yeah, the whole thing, and then like Vigo at the end, and the gang of like cannibals that want to like rape his kid. Oh God,
the movie's.
But it's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. Number 3 for me, Mad Max Fury Road.
Yep, that's on mine as well. That was one of the ones I forgot. I don't know how I forgot, but I don't think we really need to talk about why. It's incredible.
Fury Road is like one of the most revolutionary movies made. It's an action movie through and through. It got a Best Picture nomination. That's what you have to do as an action movie to get a Best Picture nomination.
Like that's what you have to do now.
If you're gonna try to compete with Lion and La La Land and movies like that, you have to make Mad Max Fury Road.
But Mad Max Fury Road, if another movie comes out just like it next year, it will not get nominated.
No.
That's why it's so hard.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So for me next, I guess I have to do my number 1 now because you've listed the other ones.
Yeah.
The Matrix.
It's my number 1 also.
Of course it is. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't say T2.
Well, I don't consider T2 to be post-apocalyptic because
it's set in the past.
It has
essentially.
scenes like Salvation's post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
But T2 has like only like flashback memories and nightmares. I don't think of it as a post-apocalyptic movie. The one that we missed, my number 2. So The Matrix is my number 1. We don't have to really talk about Matrix too much. It's a phenomenal. It's an unbelievable movie. It's like sort of every bit as good as you remember it to be, which is so rare. Yeah. Especially almost 20 years later. But my number 2 is Children of Men.
Oh, that was the other one on my list. Okay, I was like, I'm gonna hate myself for not remembering those. Were I love that movie.
Alfonso Cuarón. It's another movie I think I've seen 2 times instead of just 1, but it's just one of those movies where like certain scenes, there's that amazing scene where they're in the car
where Julianne Moore gets shot.
Yeah, and they're going back and forth, and again, it's another one of these scenes that doesn't cut. It's another one of these scenes that doesn't cut, and you see the car fly out on the road. Like that's amazing.
And the motorcycle like flips right next to the car, which is again they haven't cut.
That's unbelievable. And then there's also that scene when they're in the building and they're slowly trying to make it out, and then all the soldiers like see the baby.
Yeah.
And everybody like stops.
It just stops.
That movie is so good.
Yeah, and then right before that scene is the other famous tracking shot where Clive Owen's running away from Scud or Skip or whatever the military guy's name is. He gets through the door, he kills him with the car battery.
Yeah.
And it's a tracking shot of him running. He cuts his foot.
Yeah.
Filming, like gnarly cut, and he keeps going. And it's just another one of those things, like you talk about tracking shots and how hard they are to do. If they're going to do a long one in Snake Eyes, imagine this one, Children of Men, with all these explosions, and it's perfect.
Yeah, that movie's unbelievable. That's of all the movies we just listed right now, that's the one I want to go watch tonight.
Yeah.
I want to go watch
I think
Children of Men.
If I could pick any of these to watch, it would be Children of Men.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I saw it in theaters, I remember.
If that movie's ever on TV, I always turn it on.
You've seen it more than once.
Oh, I've seen the movie probably 10 times.
Yeah, I think I've just seen it the one time.
It's amazing.
All right, guys, that is our top 5 post-apocalyptic films of all time. If you have your own list or any super important ones you feel that we forgot, tweet in at us at AMA Podcast. We'd love to know your thoughts. Marissa, do you have a particular favorite of the ones we listed or one of your own that you love?
I do love The Matrix. That's a great film.
That's your number 1? Yeah.
How can we argue, you know?
All 3.
Yeah, for 3 on that one.
Yeah, 28 Days is also... I'm not really the biggest person on zombie movies, but I was thoroughly blown away with that film.
Yeah, it's amazing. Naomi Harris and Gleason just really pulled that together.
Yeah,
Murphy's amazing, but like the supporting cast around that is fantastic.
Yeah, there's that great Brendan Gleeson moment where the drop falls in his eye, and he's
heartbreaking.
He has those few seconds that he knows what he's about. He knows he's about to turn.
Yeah, and he's just been an asshole to his daughter, so he's like, "I love you very much."
Yeah,
and she's like, "I love you too," and she like goes to hug him, and he's like, "Get away from me!"
Yeah,
and he starts to freak out, and we should just do 28 Days Later on the show.
Should, yeah.
The one thing that I love about that movie is the erratic movement from the zombies.
Yeah,
and the way that they figured out how the zombies were going to move is the very first zombie you see in that movie is the priest.
Yeah,
he was the one that they based every other zombie's movement off of because of the way he did it. It was so like erratic and just out of control, and like the arm swinging and stuff.
Yeah,
that's the guy that they based all the rest of the film
Crazy.
on. Yeah,
that movie's great. We could probably do that on here.
Yeah, I mean we could.
It's a zombie movie. It's got a lot of action.
It's a lot of action.
Yeah.
let us know, guys.
Yeah.
At AMA Podcast.
That'd be a fun one. All right, guys, we're going to move into the next part of the film show, and that is favorite line. Yeah, this is a pretty easy one.
Yeah, you can go ahead and say it.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually two for me.
Yeah, there's two for me, too, because you've said the one so many times. It's not even a good line.
No, it's just the way that Schwarzenegger delivers it. So it's the runner-up is when they're in the helicopter, and they're like, do it, execute the prisoners, and he's like, there are lots of innocent women and children down there. All they want is food, for God's sakes.
For God's sakes.
And they're like, do it. He's like, to hell with you. And like, it's just amazing. It's just Schwarzenegger in all his glory.
Yeah, the conviction behind his lines.
Yeah, but then again, the one that everybody always remembers and quotes.
The greatest.
I'm going to make you eat that contract, but I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm going to ram it in your stomach and break your goddamn spine.
It's so good.
That line goes on for what feels like a full minute.
Yeah, unbelievable. And you even know it's coming because it's like the most memorable line in the whole movie.
Of course.
But when he says it, you still can't help but laugh out loud.
Oh, bursted out laughing.
Yeah, burst
it's
out
incredible.
Laughing. Unbelievably good.
Those are my favorite lines by far.
Yeah.
I have none other.
The other one that I love is when he's holding the chick down and he's like, I was flamed. I'm completely innocent.
You're like, what? Do you even know what you're talking about right now?
Schwarzenegger.
Poor Arnold.
God
So
bless it.
great.
So great. One segment that I suggested that we didn't end up doing because we couldn't really figure out a way to actually contextualize it. But it's this whole what makes Schwarzenegger's voice so good.
Yeah, that was a cool one. It was like the idea was basically like our top 5 movie voices and their best lines.
Yeah, and I still think it's something we could probably come up with a better like idea of how to do. Like who has the best voices and what's their best line? Because like Schwarzenegger and Keanu and Nicholson. Like Clooney's got a great voice. You have all these.
Rourke is one we talk about.
Yeah, Mickey Rourke's got a great one.
Christoph Waltz has
super good. You know, Fassbender. You know, I love Hugh Jackman's voice. I love his delivery. No. God, I want to do Logan so bad.
Gibson then.
Yeah, Gibson.
Great one.
We just started talking about actors we love, and then I realized that that's really what the list becomes.
Yeah.
But there are certain people that their delivery is just particularly amazing. And it's all like subjective too, because take a guy like DiCaprio or Hanks, they've got very specific voices. Their deliveries are very specific, but they're super memorable.
Yeah, that is so great, and Hanks especially has such a normal man's voice.
Yeah,
but it's so iconic. I mean, obviously it's because he's become such an amazing actor, but there's just something about his delivery. It's so earnest.
Yeah, he kind of talks like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You always. He's like always kind of questioning himself, so you kind of take him seriously, or earnestly.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves or something like. I
watched Catch Me If You Can the other day.
That movie's phenomenal.
It is so good.
Yeah, that might be the single most underrated movie in DiCaprio's entire career.
All their careers.
Yeah,
because it's Scorsese too, isn't it?
No, it's Spielberg.
I mean Spielberg. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spielberg, Clooney. I mean Hanks and Leo. I think it might be the most underrated out of all of them.
That movie's great. I mean, you also have Amy Adams, I think, is in that movie.
Amy Adams is fantastic in it. So is Sheen.
Yeah.
Is their dad?
Yeah. Walken is so good.
Walken is his dad. I was actually going to ask you a trivia question about.
Walken is so good in that movie.
So good. And then when you find out he's dead, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, and that scene when they're in the bar. Wait, where are you going tonight? That movie is wow.
Yeah,
I love that movie. I saw that on TV pretty recently, and it was
one of those ones where I turned it on to kind of I turned it on while trying to find something.
Yeah,
and I was like, cool, 2 hours has just passed, and I've just watched this entire film.
Yeah, I mean, some movies. I think I talked about it recently when I watched Almost Famous again. You see a movie that you remember being really good at one time, and somehow it speaks to you in a different way, and you're just struck by actually how compelling of a movie it is. Like those great movies like that. When there's no expectation anymore, it's not about where the star was or seeing it in theaters or who you're on the date with. It comes on and you can't help but watch it. The most famous of all time in this category, no question, is Shawshank Redemption, because
that's always one when it comes on. You have to.
Shawshank's like the single most I will always watch what's left of this movie, and I will always be so satisfied because it is so
I think it is
so good.
The greatest ending to a movie ever.
Yeah,
it might be.
Yeah. I mean, some people argue that's the best movie ever made. Like that's
I mean, it's
argument.
the number one on IMDb still. It has been since I ever found out about IMDb. Another movie, and we're totally just whatever. This is our show. We can get tangential. Tom Hanks in Castaway. that movie and like just a guy being on his own for a whole film. Daniel Day-Lewis does it in the beginning of There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Will Smith does it in I Am Legend.
Yeah.
The ability to
do
just
that.
have a whole movie of just you. Tom Hanks does. Tom Hardy does it in that movie where he's in
Locke.
the car.
Yeah,
Locke,
Locke,
which
yeah.
is it's okay, but
It's interesting.
that just blows me away when you can watch someone on screen exist like you're talking about for Wall-E with no words almost for an hour.
Franco in
and you're-
127 hours.
and you're just so captivated.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Cage versus Cruz.
Cage versus Squirrel. Something I was thinking about with this one was like, in this year in '87, I think that either of them could have played it. Cruz might have been a stretch because of his
It's
age.
a little young, yeah.
They're both maybe a little young, but think about this movie in like '94 starring Cage. Totally would work. 100% would work. Like, you don't think so? No?
No, I'm listening. I'm like thinking of him saying the lines.
He wouldn't say the same lines though.
But he should.
He should.
Cruz being like 1,500 innocent people down there.
Yeah. I will not do
All
it.
they want to do is eat, for God's sakes.
All they want to do is eat, for God's sakes. Yeah, I don't even know how to do the
Yeah, I
voices
don't
in
either.
this one. It's just
too tough. It's because Arnold, it's like you feel like every line is improvised.
Yeah, transposing Schwarzenegger lines to any other actor, it's like,
It doesn't work.
yeah, he's like, but I hope you leave enough room for my fist because I'm gonna go ram it into your stomach.
But I hope you leave enough
break
room
your
for my fist.
goddamn spine.
I'm gonna
that's-
ram it in your stomach, break your spine.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't do
work.
it. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
All right, we'll move on.
All right, guys. There are 3 action movie categories: totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, ridiculously legitimate. I will dignify this by explaining them, even though I don't think it's a question. Totally ridiculous are movies like Con Air and Face Off. You laugh your way to the bank. They're just hilarious and absurd. Totally legitimate movies are like The Matrix and Terminator 2 and The Fugitive, Lone Survivor. They're really well rooted in drama and they hold together incredibly well. And then there's the middle category where you laugh unintentionally a lot, but they're really grounded with some element like Point Break or Predator or something like that. And,
Yeah.
I mean, this movie is beyond ridiculous.
It's totally beyond absurdly ridiculous.
Yeah, this is like, this is on the far scale of totally ridiculous, like even beyond Face Off for me.
You could just you could clip together every scene with Dynamo in it,
Yeah.
and that would just prove how ridiculous this movie
He was
is.
a real opera singer, the guy that did that.
I mean, he had to be. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
I also love that like he's already like a fat giant like opera singer slasher with like a light bright on his chest, and he like goes down and they don't kill him and and then they give him another scene
Yeah, they have to.
where he's gonna like rape the girl. Like she's like, it's like so throwaway where you're like,
okay, so again, rape in 80s movies,
I guess.
is brought up like 5 times in this movie. Legitimately 3 times I can remember off the
Yeah.
top of my head.
Totally.
But like,
Yeah.
it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally
And it used to
uncomfortable.
not be. Like I mean, obviously we were so much younger when we
Yeah.
were like, when we watched this movie when we were like 10.
Yeah.
But like being an adult now and like, it's like, oh, maybe would have killed you then raped you, or raped you then killed you. It's just like, this is what you joke about in the 80s.
It's
huh?
like, that's not funny. Like, that's
No.
really, really not funny at all.
Yeah, super uncomfortable.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
that wraps that up. I think we can both agree this movie is totally ridiculous, and we have one thing left to do, and that is called the pitch. All right, so this is where we're at, guys.
Yes.
And honest to God, I don't think we should put this up to a poll because I think I know what would happen.
Okay.
The questions are: we have Jackman, who's a fan favorite of this show.
Yes.
We love Jackman. We love Jackman to
Jackman.
death. We have traditionally stayed away from superhero movies.
Yes.
We've done a couple, and sure, we've broken the rules a little bit. We could break the rules. We can break the rules if we want to. Doesn't really matter.
But we've never done a straight up superhero movie on the show.
No, like there's a lot of movies in the X-Men universe and the Marvel universe and DC movies. We just don't mess with them. We did Blade and
Yeah, if
The
you-
Punisher.
Yeah, and the Punisher, he doesn't have any powers. Blade that was the most.
Yeah, it's
like,
a vampire
pushing in.
movie.
Yeah, it's a vampire movie, not a superhero movie.
But Logan is coming out on March 3rd. And we are so excited about Logan. So the question becomes, do we do Logan? Do we do X2 in respect to Logan because we feel like X2 is that's peak Wolverine? Or do we do Swordfish because it's Jackman just after the first X-Men comes out, so he's like a young guy, and it's paying respect to Jackman without breaking our own rules?
Okay, so then here's my counter.
Okay.
What if we do Swordfish?
Yep.
Because it fits our rules. It's got Travolta, who's fucking sweet in it.
Yep.
Got some sweet Halle Berry-ness in there. We don't do X2 because it completely breaks the rules, but
We do Logan?
we do Logan if it's great.
We go see it.
We go see it.
The
and if
reviews
it's-
have been phenomenal.
They've been incredible.
Yeah.
And if we think it's good enough to be on our show, which hopefully it will be, then we just do Logan.
Go check out, by the way, guys, our buddy Dan Casey, who works for Nerdist, did an interview with Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman this week for the press stuff on Nerdist, and it just came out, and one of his questions to them is like, tell me about your first day on set versus your last day on set when you're filming X-Men 1 in 2000 versus filming Logan. What's the experience like? And they both have really good answers, and the stories they tell are great, and it's a really, really nice little interview piece.
It's been, 15 years have passed, right?
Longer.
For 99. So,
They
yeah.
were filming in 99. So, 17 years.
17, almost 18
The film
years.
came out in '99.
Did it? I thought it was 2000.
So it's been almost 20 years since they filmed the first movie.
Yeah.
Check out that interview because that's just in our business. That's just an incredible question to ask. Anyway,
it's a really
very
good question.
question.
So I guess I almost like want to. You think that's the move? We do back-to-back Jackman.
I think that's the move, and I think that we do back-to-back Jackman without it being Wolverine both times.
We do Swordfish followed by Logan if it's proper.
I do love Swordfish.
Yeah, I know you do. It stars Howard Saint.
I did a monologue from that in high school.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh man,
Yeah,
this
it's
is gonna
good.
be a good episode.
I'll do it again.
All right, guys, Swordfish it is. Swordfishing it up.
At AMA Podcast with your hashtag AMA question about Swordfish next week, guys. It's going to be a great episode.
Got fish on the menu next week, guys. We will see you then. Thank you so much for following along. Marissa, thanks for working up in the booth, helping out with the show today. And we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.